Good afternoon. This is a brief tutorial video on the use of the latest version of the Everett Fire Department GIS-based pre-planning tool. For Everett firefighters, you'll know this formerly as the FireFlex Viewer. Because the software has been moved from the intranet to the internet, it's now on a web-based platform so our mutual aid partners can access it. And so it's got a new desktop icon. If you're a mutual aid partner joining us for the first time, this is the knowledge base that we use to store all of our building information about the city, and it will help you maneuver through the city. We're currently looking at the desktop of a mobile data computer, and at the desktop you'll notice that there's a new icon that says EFD map page. We're going to open that. And because this software is now available on the internet, it's now password protected. After you've signed in, it's going to take you to the home screen, which has a disclaimer stating that the information may or may not be accurate. We're going to agree to the disclaimer and close this screen. I'll direct your attention first to the upper left-hand corner of the screen, which is where the navigation tools are. You have a generic zoom, which will zoom on the center point of the map and zoom out. You have a home screen button, which will go back to the default extent, which is the full map. And then you have some magnifying zoom tools, which will let you draw your box to take the magnification to the area that you want to on the map. One trick that you need to be careful of is that these tools, when they're turned on, for one thing, you can have them both turned on at the same time, which just causes problems. So you need to choose the one you want. And if you want to be able to pan the map, which it means grabbing the map and pulling it with the cursor, then you need to have both tools turned off. So if you want to zoom, you zoom. And when you're done zooming, if you want to pan the map, you have to turn that tool off. You also have the option to use your MDC keyboard. You can use the arrow keys to move the map left or right, up or down, just like the map in New World. You can also use the plus or minus keys to zoom the map out or zoom the map in. So you can do it with the touchpad, a mouse, or the keyboard. Alright, so I'm going to go back to the full extent. You'll notice that when the program first opens that the layer list is present and open. This just gives you an opportunity to customize the view that you'd like to look at. Underneath the fire inspections are the 6 layers of information that we've collected on the buildings we've surveyed. And then some of the other layers are public works and streets, as well as the overhead image collected from different city departments. I'm currently using a 2011 aerial image. The city has paid for a new aerial image that's in process right now. We should have 2015 image available here in the next month or two, so hopefully we'll be able to update the image very shortly. When we're done with this, we're going to turn the layer list off. A couple of things that I want to direct your attention to first. In the water department, particularly for Everett firefighters, if you have an interest in the neighborhood water supply, you have the opportunity to turn on the water mains just like you did in the Flex Viewer, so you can see the shape of the mains. And then if you really want to get into detail, we'll go down to the individual residences, and you can actually turn the water services on right there. And in that view, you can actually see the water service running up to the residence. And there it's visible there. They're a little bit easier to see if you turn the image off. Okay, so there's a clear view of the shape of the water mains, where the hydrants are, and where the water services are to the individual properties, which is useful in the wintertime when the ground's covered with snow, the pipes are frozen, and you're looking for the water meter. Alright, we're going to turn those back off. Turn the image back on. And then close our layer list. Okay, so you can set the layers to be with or without the image, and whatever features you feel like you would like to, that are most useful to you, that you'd like to have available to you in the field. Now I'm just going to run you through these tools across the top of the screen. This turns your layer list back on and off, which we just went through. This is a very rough legend to provide you some idea of what the various symbols mean if you don't remember them when you're on the fly. And this will take you through most of what's on the map. At the end of this presentation, I'll take you to the site where you can get the comprehensive map key and legend so that you can interpret the map. You have the option to print the extent that you're looking at. It prints to PDF. You can give it whatever name you want, and it's going to print whatever you're looking at. So if I'm looking at this screen and I want to print this neighborhood, I can give it whatever title I like. I can print it to PDF, and then I can print it to a printer or send the file as a PDF, whichever works best. And it will print whatever you're looking at, including any markings that you've made on the map, which we'll cover here in a minute. That's just a handy tool in case you want to print. There are a few other base maps available. You can go back to older aerial images if you want to see what the city looked like years ago. 2011, as I mentioned, is the most current image that we're looking at here, and we should have a 2015 image added to this list here shortly. There is a Google Street View tool, and it works just like Google Street View. Just drag the Street View tool to a roadway anywhere in the city, and you're going to have the option to look at the Google Street View. It takes you to Google Maps. Okay. You have the opportunity to draw on the map, and you can add various shapes. You can add lettering. You can add points. Okay, you just need to choose what it is you want to mark the map with. One thing you can be aware of is if you're going to draw circles or lines, you can add measurements. So that if you do draw a circle and you want to know the area of that circle, and there I've added a shape, and it gives you the volume of the shape. Okay, so you can play with the drawing tools. Bookmarks. If there's properties that you look at on a regular basis that you want to be able to zoom to quickly, you can add as a bookmark. Alright, we're looking at Station 1. If we want to add that view as a bookmark, and then just add it. That resides in your computer's cookies, so if it's a computer you use on a regular basis, bookmarks will be available to you there. But when you change workstations, the bookmarks don't follow you, so you'll have to make new ones. So I don't use the bookmarks, but you're welcome to make whichever bookmarks are convenient for you. Okay, working our way across the top. The identify tool we're not going to use. The measurement tool is kind of handy. This is kind of useful if you have that question of will my hose reach? Particularly useful for supply hose. If I want to know the distance between these 2 points, all I have to do is click on the map. And there on the right hand side is the available number of feet between those 2 points. And even if it's a complicated direction, if you have to add a couple of changes of directions, it's just going to continue to add in until you're done doing measurements. So that's available to you. The filter tool and the pictometry tool we're also not going to use today, which takes us to the address search bar. Unfortunately, this software doesn't link to New World, so it doesn't import the address that you're searching for if you're going on a call, so you're going to have to type the address in yourself. It does have some autofill capability, so as you start to type the address, it's going to start to give you options. So we're going to take you through, I'm going to start looking at a couple of addresses here. So we'll go back to the full extent of the map, and let's say that I want to search for Fire Station 1, which we were just there, 3619 Rucker. Okay, this is a dialog box that pops up after the address search so that whatever magnification you're at, you can identify it on the map. Okay, if it's in your way, you just close it and it gets it out of the way. So that's a basic address search. You can clear your search and enter new addresses there to your heart's content. Common question as we start to interpret the symbols on the map is, how do I know if a building's been surveyed or not? So I'm going to use 2 buildings here in the neighborhood to contrast those two. You can see the Grand Avenue condos over here have extensive markings on them, and Bundy Carpets has no markings. So buildings with no markings have never been surveyed, and buildings with any markings at all have been completely surveyed. So granted, this is a newer building and has a bunch of different features that are available for you to review. So you know that this building's been surveyed, and you know that this building hasn't. I'm going to take you to a different address out on Casino to demonstrate a little bit of a different situation. Okay, so here these apartment buildings are much older. They don't have any of the features of a modern apartment building, but we know that they've been surveyed because they do have a mark on them. They just have a no sprinkler mark. So what I can interpret by looking at these buildings is that number one, they're not sprinklered, and number two, that they don't have any other features attached to them, because I know it's been surveyed in its entirety. There's no natural gas here, there's no fire alarm panel here, there's no interior stairwells here, there's just a non-sprinklered apartment building. But we can say with confidence that it has been surveyed because it does have a mark on it. Take you to a different address. Alright, this is a commercial building out in Engine 4's area. At this magnification, I can see that there's a large FD symbol, which if I look in my guide says that that stands for Fire Department Access. And in Everett, Fire Department Access is the best access point for the fire alarm panel. So I know that even at this magnification, that if I take my fire engine here, that I'm going to be parked in the best place to get to the alarm panel. Alright, so an interesting feature about this building is that for whatever reason they placed the Knox box on the far side of the building. So by looking at this while I'm en route to the call, I know that I'm going to need to go to this side of the building to gather up the Knox box keys, and then I'm going to have to drive around to the other side of the building to park at the best place to access the alarm panel. So here we have the Knox box located on floor 1, and we have to drive around to the best fire department access point, which is floor 1 below grade, where the alarm panel is also on floor 1 below grade. It's also a good opportunity to point out the markings on these hydrants. So FH is a fire hydrant, and then the label underneath, private, the water department has marked the map for us with the fire hydrants that are not maintained by the city. So any non-city maintained fire hydrant will have private marked underneath it. And if we go out to the street, through the private hydrants, we can see that there's a public hydrant that's maintained by the water department. What that means in Everett just means that the public hydrants are tested by the water department on an annual basis, and that the private hydrants are the responsibility of the property owner. So there's a possibility that they have not been maintained to the level that the city public hydrants have. Same fire hydrant, it's going to have the same features. It's just a possibility that you're going to run into a poorly maintained hydrant. Okay, I'm going to take you to another address. This is a residential address, and we can see that it's got a marking on it, and that's a special hazard marking. There's a variety of different possible letters that could be inside the special hazard mark. This is an S, which is just a general special hazard. We need to know what that S is, so if I click on it once in the center, it's going to bring up a dialog box that has all the attributes that are associated with that point on the map. And in this case, and in all cases of special hazards, we mark in the notes what the hazard is. So here in the notes it says there's aggressive dogs. So at this address, while you're en route, if you click on the special hazard, you'll be pre-informed that there's aggressive dogs at that location. If for whatever reason you visit this home and find out that that family has moved and there's no longer aggressive dogs there, all you have to do is send me a note and I can have this mark removed. Alright, let's go to a different address. Okay, this is the Johnflute Building out on Seaway Boulevard. It's a very complicated building, particularly for fire protection. So we've marked the map and the building with terminology that they use out at their plant. The triangles on the building are known as cores, and then within each core there's a couple of pods. So when sometimes they dispatch us there, they're going to say there's a medical call in the B pod. You'll have an idea of where the B pod is in the building. If the fire alarm panel is referencing a certain core, you'll have an idea of which core, where on the building that is. And then also be aware that each core has its own fire department connection and sprinkler riser valve. So in this case, when we first search for this building, if we're going here for a fire alarm at this magnification, I can see that I'm going to move my fire engine to this point. And then as I zoom in, I can see that I'm going to move through this I'm going to park my rig here, and that there's a fire alarm panel located in core 1 just inside the front door. There's also an after-hours contact number put on there. They do have 24-hour security there, and this is the number that gets a hold of them if they don't meet you at the door. And then survey of the building, we can see that they store a variety of other hazardous materials, flammable gases, and flammable liquids at the property. And if I were to click on each one of these, this is a flammable liquid storage shed. Here we have more detail. This is a 1,500-gallon liquid hydrogen tank, and we provide the UN number for that tank. So by clicking on each feature, you have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about what's underneath that feature when you look at the attributes table. Alright, let's go to another address. Alright, this is the Stockpot Soups facility, also in Engine 4's area. At this magnification, if you have a fire alarm at this address, you can see that the place you're going to report to is here. If I zoom in closer, I can see that I'm going to move from the fire department access point through a key box to the alarm panel, which is a remote panel. And I can see that, and it's located on floor 1, and I can see that the main panel is down and around the corner, also on floor 1. A little bit more symbol interpretation here. This is an elevator bank. It's elevator bank number 1, and it services floors 1 through 2. As I move across the building, this is a symbol for a stairwell. This is stairwell number 2, and it serves floors 1 through 2. Here's stairwell number 3. It serves floors 2 through roof access. In Everett, we don't mark roof access points that are anything other than full stairwells with doors to the roof. So if it says roof access, then it's a doorway to the roof. We don't mark scuttles as roof access on stairwells. Okay, at Stockpot, you can also see that they have an after-hours contact phone number marked on the building. There's a variety of fencing and gates all throughout the property, and we provided the lock codes for each one of those gates. We've identified the ammonia room. If you were to click on the hazmat symbol, it's going to bring up the table and say that there's 10,000 gallons of anhydrous ammonia in that system. And then they have a chemical dock with a variety of other things. Here we've got drums of cooking oil, 8,000 gallons of sodium hypochlorite, etc., etc. So you can work your way all the way through this. And you can see as you maneuver across the property, here's gate number 3. There's the lock code. There's also a swing arm. We've got the code for the swing arm. A lot of these things are nicer than having to cut through the gate. Okay, we're going to take you to another address. This is a fairly notorious building in Everett. This is the Vintage in East and Northeast Everett. Very, very complicated layout. And it's got a lot of markings on it, and these are really an attempt to help you sort through the complexity of the building. At this magnification, I can see where I need to report to answer a fire alarm. If I zoom in closer on that point, I can see the current door code. I can see that there's a key box on the front door and that the alarm panel is just inside the door on floor 1. Okay, I can see that the facility is divided into a north and south facility. And if I look closely, I can see that there's a south FDC that supplies the south sprinklers and standpipes. And there's a north FDC that supplies the north sprinklers and standpipes. There's also a variety of stairwells and elevators. Of note is when a stairwell is equipped with a standpipe, it has a hose connection attached to it. So this particular stairwell is stairwell number 2. It services floors 0-4, which is 4 floors below grade, through floor 1, and it has a hose connection in it, which is a standpipe. Okay, some of the other markings here to help you interpret this building, for whatever reason, has lettered floors instead of numbered floors. So here's just a quick guide to help you translate the floor letters into numbers, if that's useful to you. And then the fire alarm will divide the building into fire alarm zones. And the purple lettering provides the zones, the rough geographic location of those zones. And then pre-plan of the building will show you that these zones are separated by fire doors and fire blocking in the attic. Very complicated building. It was difficult to mark and it's difficult to interpret. So most of the officers that work in this area spend some time getting used to the layout of this building. But if you're unfamiliar with the building, you can get some general information by looking at the map. Okay. Let's search for an address a different way. Rather than using the search bar, let's say we're going to the Everett Mall. I'm going to use my zoom tool. I know by looking at the map that the Everett Mall is roughly in this area. Okay, I need to turn the zoom tool off to be able to pan the map. And then turn it back on because I want to get closer. Okay, the Everett Mall is a very old building. It's been remodeled extensively, multiple times. And it's divided into big box stores. And it's divided into sprinkler zones. So here we've got some information about the mall office. We've got some contact phone numbers. We can see the various sprinkler areas, and as we get closer to the FDCs, which are located all over the property, we can see that this fire department connection supplies area number 5. And as we zoom back, we can see that area number 5 covers the interior stores along the area of the mall office and also the Burlington Coat Factory. And unfortunately, there's not good plans of the Everett Mall to overlay on this to be more specific than this, but at least gives you an idea of roughly where the fire is, which FDC to supply. I've also included some information in the name call out here. So the front fire alarm panel serves the entire mall, but not the big boxes. There's a major natural gas supply in the alley between these buildings, and that fire department connection number 1, which is buried back here, is going to require a blind alley lay. Okay, another useful feature, if you want to turn your layers back on and off, is within the building layer, we have the opportunity to turn the actual building layer off, and you can get a look at the roof of any one of these buildings. So here you can see the alley that runs behind the Regal Cinemas, and that there's actually a fire department connection for area number 1 buried back there in this alleyway. We can also see that there's a natural gas valve here, and that it's a major one. It supplies the natural gas to Sears and mall areas 1, 5, and 2. Okay, let's see. Go to another address. Let's go to 2610. Okay, so this is a building out near the Boeing Plant. Just another large commercial building. The markings for this building tell me that for a fire alarm in this building that I'm going to go to this point, that there's a key box on floor 1, and that the alarm panel is just inside the door on floor 1. There's another alarm panel over here. We had a call at this address for a natural gas leak, and we're very efficient in shutting down the natural gas because we knew that there were both 2 different supplies, and these are both buried in the bushes. Without the map, I don't know that we would have identified right away that there were 2 gas supplies to the building. We also know that there's no firewall between these 2 occupancies, and that we have measured the stairwells as a joint building. So here we have stairwell number 1 serving floors 1 through 2, here's stairwell number 2 serving floors 1 through 2, etc. If you're en route to this building for a fire and you want to take the fire department connection, you can survey, you can see that the fire department connections are out in the yard, and here they're labeled fire department connection right between a hydrant, and then which one services which building. Okay, a lot of stuff going on out at Boeing. A lot of construction going on out there right now. The aerial image is not up to date, nor is the city's building footprints. There's a new LiDAR image coming for the new buildings also, but we can see which buildings were demolished we can see the numbers of the buildings that remain, and we will add in the new buildings when the new image arrives. We've also got all the parking lots marked, north lots, east lots, the perimeter road, and all the major numbers for all the buildings on the plant. I just received maps of hydrants. All of the water supply out of the Boeing plant is private. I just received maps from the Boeing company for their water supply, and I'm going to attempt to mark this map with hydrants. A lot of them are inside the building, so it's going to be very difficult to mark the map with hydrants, but I'll do the best that I can. Okay, well that's it in a nutshell. That's the Everett Fire pre-planning tool. If the building has no markings, then it's never been surveyed, and if the building has markings on it, then it's been surveyed. And you'll find that most of the apartment complexes are done, that within the apartment complexes and major structures that I've got call-outs that identify the names of those structures. Okay, these names come and go. If you find data that's out of date, please just shoot me an email with the correction, the corrected information, and I will come in and edit this map and make changes as needed. The physical fixtures often, unless the building goes under an extensive remodel, those things don't change, so the marks should be good for a very long time. So feel free to send me updates. So, Everett firefighters, where do you go for a more comprehensive key? We're going to go to the resource library, and I'll take this all the way back to the beginning of the resource library so you can see where we're going. From the fire department homepage, you have a couple of options. Number one is at your desktop if you're interested in playing with this map at the desktop instead of the MDC. This link here, EFD Web Map, will take you to this same map. And if you want to go to the GIS data documents, we need to go to the resource library. And then it's kind of buried in here. It's in administration, it's in technology, and it's in GIS mapping. And here you have a better quick reference key. You have a survey form. If you're interested in conducting a survey on a building that's never been surveyed, you can do it on paper and then send it to me and I'll input it for you. And then there's a comprehensive user's guide. I'm also going to see if I can't have them add this video into this folder so that it'll be there for you if you need it. Try to look at this map as a knowledge management system for the fire department. Years past, company officers were supposed to try to remember the things that they needed to know about the buildings in their area, and it's simply impossible to do that today. There's too many buildings, and we get moved too often. So things that you would like to know about these buildings, we try to keep on this map. It's a live, living map. It's available to you in the field. We're working on streaming the data of the vehicle locations of this map so that we'll have a little bit of a backup to the New World system. Ideally, this data integrated at some point with the New World maps, but that hasn't happened yet. And so we're going to continue to run this as an independent system because this is our current pre-planning tool. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to get a hold of me, ddemarco@everettwa.gov. And if you have changes that you want to make to the map, please send me any changes that you have. And if you'd like to go out and survey a building, or if you need any assistance in surveying a building, please get a hold of me and I'll help you with that as well. Thanks for watching, and I hope you're able to make some use out of this information.